Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play Team. This actual play uses the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game rules by Chaosium. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. While we try very hard to stick to language for all ages, listeners should know that this podcast may include mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., that may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your keeper. Thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Old Ways Podcast. I'm your keeper, Keeper Michael, and we return to Horror on the Orient Express with a bit of a sidetrack, but nothing less than fun, I assure you. And so I am going to give it over to my investigators. To my right.
Hi, this is Mike, and I'm playing Aidan Moore, who has just had a bit of a run-in with some little fellas with pointy heads.
Yes, they're not even mathematics professors. To the other side of the table.
Hi, I'm Miranda, and I'm playing Madame Davina, and I seem to have procured a new confusing item. We'll see what comes of it.
Yeah, it does seem that you've gotten your hands on something that seems a bit unique, which isn't out of school for Madame Davina, I would imagine. Probably more on that later. So when we last saw our investigators, our team, as it were, here, they were just legging their way out of a very dark and foreboding and slightly dangerous house in Paris, where they'd done a little bit of investigating, a little bit of gnome punching, and then a little thievery. And so they are boarding the next morning a ferry that will return them to Dover by way of Calais. And so what we'll do is we'll pick up midday as the ferry gets going. The two of you have managed with your hotel room in Paris to get a little sleep. It is impossible to erase the angry, statuesque faces that you encountered last night, nor the music, which seems to worm its way inside your brains as you sleep, to the point where, Aidan, you are humming that somewhat mystical tune when you wake up, unfortunately. It's quite cheap. But the two of you now sit on the ferry, headed back to England.
Yeah, I know last time we were on the ferry that Madame Davina tried to hustle for some cash, but after all that's happened, she would probably enjoy maybe a less eventful trip back home.
Yeah. I mean, if nothing else, the Beatons have assured you that you'll be paid for your services, so maybe a little less hustling is reasonable at this point. Plus, the events of Paris were a little traumatic. Quieter might be the better choice.
She also remembers that Aidan was not the best wing person on the trip down. Certainly.
And
she's not interested in telling him his fortune again.
It's like Aidan is a bit more subdued on the way back as well. You know, he took some hurt from the run-in with the wee fellas in the house. And he's still nursing his wounds a little bit. Although I would imagine overnight, in game terms, there's been some hit point recovery. Night's rest.
Indeed. You've gotten a couple of hit points back.
Smashing, thank you.
Aidan, are you okay? You keep humming that tune.
It's a catchy wee number. Never heard it before. It's like, it feels kind of familiar, but I don't think I know it.
It's a bit of an earworm, yes.
A what now?
In earworm, it wiggles into your brain. It gets stuck there.
Earworm. I like that. Is that a Hungarian saying then?
Yeah, it's something like that.
Aye, earworm. Aye, I like that.
There are members of the ferry that do staff here that occasionally walk around with the paper or area where you can get tobacco or right now they're not serving any alcohol at the moment. It's usually reserved for the afternoon ferry.
If you have a flask, though, you do not need to wait for service.
I'll just stick to a nice cup of tea, I think. So, what did you make of all that then?
Honestly, I don't even know where to begin with it, Aidan. This man, we've seen the power that he holds or that surrounds him on now multiple occasions.
It seems that way.
He seems very dangerous of a person.
That house, though, that house in Paris didn't have his name on it anywhere. I guess he's just kind of keeping it on the down low, you know.
Perhaps it was a family home, or he's going by a different name.
Aye,
the man is the
maybe,
kind
aye.
of man that likes to keep secrets. Perhaps he trained in the dark arts there.
Well, I don't know about that, but maybe you're onto something there. What was the name of the fella that you saw on the paperwork? Bourre, was it? Maybe that's a nom de plume or something that he uses.
Possibly.
Aye, maybe he calls himself that when he's in France, and maybe he calls himself something different wherever he goes.
He seems like a man with many secrets and many reasons to hide things.
Aye, but what's his game? What's his game?
That we do not know yet.
I mean, why would you think those gnomes, those creatures? Do you think they were there just purely to protect this object, this whatever it is, this key, this musical instrument that we found in that room?
Perhaps they did serve the purpose of like a guard dog.
Aye, maybe. Question is then, I suppose, what is this thing? Why is it so important?
Aidan, I have very similar questions to you. I'm sorry, Aidan, I cannot answer your questions right now.
I know you can't. I'm kind of thinking aloud, really. That's how I puzzle over things. I kind of talk them out. Sometimes I find if you say something aloud, you kind of come a better way to finding an explanation for it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I think I understand what you mean.
Aye, so what do you think next then? Shall we meet up with your man Beaton when we get across home again?
Oh yes, certainly. I think that is our we have to collect payment for one.
Well, aye, that's true enough. What do you think we should tell him though?
I believe we tell him the truth.
Tell him about this key thing as well.
Well, he has seen it himself, correct? Strange things, I mean.
Well, he's seen strange things. So I'm sorry, I thought he meant he'd seen the key. Or whatever it is.
Maybe he has seen the key, we do not know yet.
Aye, maybe. Maybe his wife has.
Yes, and maybe his wife can share more information with us about her relationship with this Fitzgeorge character.
Fitzgeorge or whatever his name is. I wouldn't be surprised if his name's nothing like Fitzgeorge. That's just some made-up name.
Perhaps there are some other circles that he hangs out in as well. Other associates that we could get into contact with.
Aye, maybe. Remind me, if you would, Mike, when I was doing my initial investigations into this Fitzgeorge fella, had I found out anything about the sort of social circles that he keeps, or was he very much a kind of closed book?
He was a fairly closed book for the most part, although you did learn that he keeps a few solicitors within his purview. You had learned and seen, likely, that he made visit. You know about the court case, quite obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And so he probably works in those legal circles. But given what you've seen, it's possible maybe he uses them just to avoid legal infractions.
Yeah, but nothing about a social circle, who his friends might be.
No.
And where he lives in London as well.
A secret.
That's very interesting.
Perhaps he is a member of the London Spiritualist Society.
London what now?
It is this group led by this stupid man. The London Spiritualist Society.
What is that now? Is that some kind of group of toffs that sit around and have seances and the like?
Well, yes, that is exactly it. I know that they do swindle elderly women out of their money often. It's led by this man, Lord Walters, but if they run in similar circles, perhaps he knows something about this Fitzgeorge.
Do you know this fella? This Lord Walters, you say?
I only know of him. I do not know him specifically.
Maybe that's a good thought, you know, if he sounds like the kind of thing that he's maybe a member of, sounds like he's right up his street.
Just throwing ideas out there. I mean,
I know it's a good idea. If there's anyone that you know that's connected,
I believe we must pull every string that we can on this weather.
Well, I tend to agree with you there now.
So the ferry returns to Dover. It lands and docks without issue, and the two of you are soon available thereafter to take the train up to London. My question to you is, given that you still have some portion of the day left, you'd reached Victoria Station just before 3. Given that you'd have some time left, what would you do with the balance of the day?
Just before 3, yeah.
Do you think it is important enough that we should go visit them right away?
Well, I'd kind of like to see the wife, you know. But I mean, I suppose we could drop by, just let him know. I could drop by the office, let him know that I'm back, and just that we've got information for him. Maybe we could go and see him this evening or something.
Yes, I believe they will want to know right away, as soon as we can share with them.
Well, let's do that then. Let's get a cab when we get back to the station, and we'll pop our heads in the door and let him know that we're home and we've got news for him, and see what he wants to do. I mean, you never know. He might be busy with work and that kind of thing.
Okay. So after Victoria Station, you gather a cab, and in short order are whisked to a nice area of London, where you yet again walk among, socially speaking, people that are a little bit more financially able than yourselves. That is evident by the clothes they wear and the sheer amount of servants around them. Beaton residence stands before you.
Right. You do want to do the honors?
Yes, okay. I will go up and knock on the door.
Young man answers the door. Can I help you?
Yes, we are here to see Mr. and Mrs. Beaton. We were being expected.
Oh, you're expected. He looks just for a moment back towards the depth of the house. Please come in. And you are?
Yes, Madame Davina, and I have Aidan more with me.
Oh, give me just one moment.
Thank you very much.
He lets you step in the foyer area here, and then he turns around and walks back towards the middle of the home, and you see a butler soon thereafter enter the space. Oh, good afternoon.
How's about you? We're just back from France. We're here to see the Beatons.
Oh, of course. Back from France. Are you here because of Ernest's request?
Aye, that's right, aye. Did the wee fella not tell you?
No. We've had to gather some new members of staff. 1,000 apologies. He reaches his arm out and extends it towards a room. Please come and sit. Make yourself comfortable.
Right, you are now.
A few minutes later, Ernest Beaton arrives downstairs. Looks like he's just pushed himself into a jacket a little bit. He's fussing as he walks into the room. You've returned.
You noticed? Aye, sure we did, aye.
Well, nearly didn't.
Truly.
Well, I joke, but it was. Well, it wasn't exactly all plain sailing, if you catch my drift.
He turns to just the slightest of head turns towards the butler. You may leave us. Butler leaves and shuts the door. I do hope you've brought good news.
Well, I don't believe we have brought much news. We did not find the men. What we found did scare us, and we were hoping that perhaps your wife has more information she can share.
Well, she has been in bed most of the days. Been gone, but she is slowly recovering.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. I think, though, that given the particularities of our little excursion across the channel, the more we can find out, the more we can know about what you and your wife know about this fella, the better. Because it looks like he's mixed up in some shady dealings.
It's as I feared. Some chicanery or some sort of... And I do not mean to impugn your business, Madame Davina, but it seems that he's came in amongst the same circles of people that Esther decided to, expand her social circles into.
I take no offense.
That's exactly the kind of thing that we need to know. He came in with... Who did he come in with? How did your wife meet him? Who introduced him to her?
Did she seek him out, or did he seek her out?
She, with several of her social friends, went to a tea house in London. I'll give you the address for it.
Please do, yes.
At this reputable, he seems to stress with both his eyes and meaning, reputable house, she was caught in conversation with this Fitzgeorge fellow, and before anyone else could explain where he had come from, the man offered his own explanation as to who he was and where he came from, vaunted himself some sort of investment agent from both Italy and France and beyond, extending all the way east to Constantinople.
Constantinople? Where's that? Is that out east somewhere now?
Indeed. It is east. It's unfortunately a land that has been troubled for many years by unsettled rulers. He actually takes you over to a map.
Oh, lovely.
Here in the room. And he shows you on a map where the Black Sea meets the Aegean Sea, and you see two pieces of land that seem to bisect them. And he points directly at the dot that's in the center. He says, that is Constantinople. It historically has been a very turbulent place.
Aye, right enough. So this fella says he's some sort of financial consultant or something, and...
Well, that's what he billed himself there as at this tea house. But then quite frankly, I can't possibly leave this lie. I have heard other reports of him showing up at bathhouses and being, reportedly involved several people at these bathhouses.
Right now, so you say reportedly involved with several people. That's all a wee bit vague and indistinct. I can't really do anything with that. I need to know facts and names and dates and places if I can follow this through.
A man is trying to be a gentleman, possibly because you are in the company of a lady. But what kind of business do you think a man would have the bath?
Well, you're going to have to spell it out for me, I'm afraid. I don't know what you're alluding to. Is this something salacious? Are you talking about? Is this something the illegal trade, flesh trade, or something? Is that what you're meaning?
It is my understanding. See, straighten his tie. That he has had relations with men at these bathhouses.
I'm with you now. There's a variety of names for that kind of a fella, but as you say, there's a lady in the room, so I won't besoil the air with them. But what has that to do with anything in terms of his business with your wife? So the gentleman likes other gentlemen, so that's neither here nor there, the way I say it.
No, I agree. It does not bear on the situation because he seemed to have no issue preying on my wife.
So the question I suppose I'm asking is, did he just come out of the blue and speak to your wife, or was he introduced to your wife?
They met at the tea house, correct?
Aye, but how did they meet? Did he just walk up and say hello?
No.
It sounds like there is some confusion regarding that, Aidan, and that...
It is a story which my wife refuses to tell.
Well, I'm afraid she's just going to have to tell it, and I think if she won't tell it to you, maybe she'll tell it to us once she hears the kind of shenanigans that this fella's up to.
Well, if you are willing to speak with her, I'm certain the lady of the house can be made available to you.
I'm more than willing to speak to her as long as you feel she's up to it, because I'm telling you, sir, I'll have some hard questions for her.
Aidan, she's in a fragile state.
This is the only way. I'm sorry if this is a little on the blunt side, but this is the only way we're going to find out anything about this man. We can't pussyfoot around this whole issue, because if we do, we'll find out nothing, and we'll not be able to help you. So if you're not forthright with us, there's nothing we can do about it.
I hired the detective agency to do a thorough investigation, and I agree that I cannot have such an investigation be thorough unless I am willing to make sure that you have all the information you need.
Absolutely. It seems to be this fella has got very vague and shady background that nobody seems to know nothing about it, and we're trying to find out something about it, because only that way can we help you.
Of course, there is a drawing room upstairs. We will make it available. Give me 10 minutes.
I do appreciate it. Don't think that I don't appreciate it, sir. But as I say, I'm sorry. I'm a bit blunt, but frankly, we've had a pretty hard time across there in Paris, and I think it's time for some solid information to come our way.
I'll make her available to you, but of course, I require to be in the room.
Why? I wouldn't think any other way.
Of course.
If she has not told you yet, what makes you think that she will tell us with you in the room?
Well, she will simply come to understand that she is holding the entire process up.
Well, here's a thought. How about this now? How about if we have a wee chat, all of us in the room together, and if it looks like she's still holding something back, she's maybe not wanting to be as forthcoming as we might need her to be, why don't you and I, why don't we step outside to smoke a pipe or something like that? And perhaps Madame Davina can speak to her, one lady to another. Maybe she'll be able to feel a little bit more confident and that kind of thing in that sort of situation.
That seems fair. Very well, I will go and make the drawing room and the lady therein presentable. He steps out of the room shortly thereafter, and you are given space within the room down here, which you've been in before, because this is where the party was several nights ago. And a short while later, the butler, you assume the head butler, gathers the two of you and walks you upstairs into the private home portion of the estate, where you are seen to a drawing room. And it's probably got 6 or maybe 7 total seats at it. They seem fairly comfortable. There's a small, long table near one end of it, which looks like it could be used for either tea service or buffet or something akin to that. And then in the lone 7th seat, that chair in the far middle end, which would normally be reserved for the man of the house, Esther Beaton sits. She looks like she hasn't slept in days. Her eyes are downcast. You feel her frailty from across the room. She's covered in a blanket. It's across her lap. And she is slowly and patiently petting a very large cat. And Ernest acknowledges you when you enter, and then walks you over to the couches beside her chair.
Aidan will nod his head. Good afternoon, Mrs. Beaton. As you know, I'm Aidan Moore. I hope you're feeling a a wee bit better today?
I'm recovering. Thank you.
I don't know if your husband mentioned this, and I'm very sorry to have to disturb you and ask you some difficult questions, but as you probably know, we are looking into this young man, this Fitzgeorge fella, who you've been made the acquaintance of recently. We believe that his intentions, madam, might not be completely honourable. In order to ascertain whether or not this is the case, we're doing a wee bit of looking into his past, his history, what kind of man he is, what kind of company he keeps, and that sort of thing. If you follow my drift. So, is it all right if we ask you a few wee questions about the man?
I suppose.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that very much. That'll be a great help to us. I suppose the very first question that I'd like to ask you is, how did you come to meet this fella Fitzgeorge?
There is a tea house that friends of mine would meet at every fortnight. And Ernest's the one who encouraged me to go and to be more social. He said that being trapped up here in the house wasn't good for me. And so I went, and I remember enjoying all sorts of chats with my friends and the occasional game of bridge. And there was one day where it felt like a different breeze had come into the room. And I remember seeing him across the space there, across the tea house. And he had just a different air about him. He was a different sort of fellow than many of the other ladies that I was with. Was taken aback by his features. Of course, London is a very diverse city. There are many people here from many nations, but there was something about him that was intriguing. She almost seems to brighten as she talks about him.
And was the gentleman alone when he arrived in the tea house, or was he in company?
No, he was alone. He didn't have anyone else with him. Many of us thought that maybe he was meeting someone there. But he took a table nearby, and I remember one of the ladies I was with, I remember her commenting that he had some sort of cologne on, that she could smell whatever he was wearing.
I see, aye. And what happened next?
I remember him standing up, and he must have finished his tea, and he stood up, and the lady next to me, Alice, said that she nodded to him, and he nodded to her in return, and suddenly the two of them were speaking. He walked over and introduced himself, and he was very pleasant. Seems to sit up straighter. It was it was fascinating. We heard all about his travels. Italy, Paris. He mentioned another place, a place he had been. Egypt. She brightens even further. He'd been all over. Madame Davina, from your position, you can see if it was possible for Ernst to grind the Rock of Gibraltar between his molars, he would have.
Mm-hmm.
He is deeply frustrated.
You say he told you of his travels and that. What kind of tales did he tell? What kind of adventures did he have on these travels?
He spoke of a story. He met Lady Margaret Bramwell and her cats. something about that. He said that he had met her on the Orient Express while traveling to London here, and he had somehow charmed her 2 cats that evidently these pair of Siamese that just are, well, they're not here like Daisy. She kind of pets her cat in her lap. They're not pleasant. They're very protective, but somehow he'd managed to charm both those cats and had them eating out of his hand.
I see, and he was quite a charming man then.
Indeed. Her features and her body position have now changed back more towards her at the party. You see the vibrant Esther again.
So it seems like whenever she thinks about and talks about this man, it kind of gives her a spark of vitality.
Seems to be, yeah.
Did he share your interest in the spiritual side of the world?
Oh, absolutely. One of the most well-read men I know. He said he'd studied text from all over the East, and that he'd been to the Orient as well.
Well, he certainly seems to get about a bit, doesn't he? Did he speak of his education, where he came from, that sort of thing?
He said that he was educated in Paris, and he went to some of the finest schools there. He spoke French flawlessly.
So he was a Parisian gentleman. He was French himself, did he say?
He didn't, actually. She seems to get... you can see her eyes cloud. Not physically, but she seems to search for something, as if it's out there, the fog, but she can't land on what it is.
They make a psychology roll to maybe get an idea about if there's anything unusual about she's trying to grasp for very hazy memories and kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Okie dokie. So I have got a psychology of 61. Yeah. So that is a 26 I've just rolled. That's a hard success for my psychology.
Okay, so what are you specifically looking for?
I'm kind of looking just in the way, in the kind of the way that she's being quite vague, and you're sort of saying her eyes are clouding over, like she's searching for something. Do I get the feeling that I've come across these charlatans and that kind of thing who claim to be mesmerists and and be able to. I've seen acts for people who get members of the audience onto the stage and make them cluck like chickens and that kind of thing. Do I get the impression that maybe he has somehow managed to, with his words and way of speaking, speak to her without telling her anything, but she thinks she kind of knows something about him, but maybe she doesn't know anything at all, and now she's actually trying to pinpoint some knowledge. She kind of finds it's not even there.
It's a bit like that, but the correlative that I'll give you is a little different. You equate it with some of the soldiers that you'd treated, in the sense that when something traumatic happened to them, they're unable to give you a specific point about what happened. They couldn't tell you where the lieutenant went, but they can tell you some of the things around that situation. Now, it may be that the man died. It may be that the man went on to a great victory, but that moment in time for them is removed because of something traumatic happening.
Right, so like a blind spot kind of thing in her memory. All right, okay. Well, that's very interesting. That now you had this chat with him, this first meeting in the tea house. When did he next meet him after that?
Oh, well, I had a social function here at the home for some of my, some of our, she points to Ernest, some of our social circle, whether they be business or whether they be some of my own social acquaintances. We had a small gathering here, maybe 30 or 40 people. And happened to be that he was there to escort one of the guests, and it was wonderful to see him again. And it was after that, really, that he just seemed to pop up every now and again.
Well, you say he was escorting one of the guests. Do you recall who it was he was escorting?
I don't. But there must be a guest book for the event.
Yes. Do you know of other guests that were there? We could also ask them, or...
Perhaps Roger would know. She looks over at Ernest. Perhaps he would have the book of who came. We would have written letters thanking people for attendance, of course. But I think, yes, he would have the book.
Roger? Who is Roger?
Ernest looks over and says, her personal assistant. I have Roger Turnberry. He's just down the hall.
Oh, well, I think we'll maybe have a wee word with him later on, if that's all right.
Certainly. Now, my dear, tell them how often he came. She seems to look a little uncomfortable. Well, I suppose, Alexander, you can hear like the slightest bit of affection she places on his name. He would come around every few days at first. Tea. Sometimes in the garden.
Isn't that rather frequent for a man you'd only just met?
I make no excuses for having a social life, nor should.
Did people come with him when he came to visit, or did he just come on his own?
No, he came on his own.
So it was just yourself and him having tea in the garden every few days?
Well, there were members of staff around. It wasn't like we were having some private times together. She seems to direct the words at Ernest.
Did he bring you any gifts at any point during these? Did he bring you any trinkets or small presents?
No, that would be highly inappropriate.
I'm sorry, Mum. Do continue.
She seems a little clouded. I don't know that She seems her hands suddenly go to her neck.
Have you lost something, Mum?
There was something he gave me. A necklace.
Oh, yes.
Was this prior to your party, which you had your spell?
It was the day before. He came to make sure that everything was prepared for the event.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think that it was entirely appropriate for a married woman to be accepting such a gift from a single young man? I presume he was single. He's not married himself.
I don't believe so, but it seemed a small bauble, if nothing else. He had been coming around for a few months at that point.
What did this necklace look like?
There was a small charm on it with some artistic filigree or something like that.
Does she describe the necklace that we have?
Yeah, she does. I must have lost it at some point. There were no fineries heaped on me, if that's the accusation.
Now, in terms of this fella, Fitzgeorge, whenever you saw him and spoke to him, was it always here at this house, or did you ever meet him anywhere else? Did you ever meet him at his place of residence, for instance?
No, we were always here. Although he did mention that there was a apartment not too far from the tea house that he maintained as a residence here in London. Nice area. It seemed to be, at least from the address. I have it there on the in my journal.
Oh, if we might see it, yes, please. That would be very useful.
Certainly. She doesn't get up, but Ernest comes over and appropriates her journal and hands it to her. You can tell just from the way he grabs it, it is likely something might be just slightly of an annoyance to him.
I think if I can, while there's a certain amount of distraction, while he's getting the journal and handing it to her and the two of them are looking to each other,
certainly.
I'd like to very quietly whisper to Madame Davina, we might want to get a look at that journal at some point.
There's about 50% chance that I could nick it.
Well, if you'd like me to provide any sort of distraction, then I'm your man.
Yes, here it is. He wasn't far at all from Westminster. You can tell by the way she's speaking, she does not mean the building.
And would you mind giving us over this address?
She leaves through the pages until she finds it. Yes, it's right here, Chadwick Street. She shows you the address.
Is this a street that I would know of? I would recognize, know the location of.
I would say, roughly speaking, you would probably know it as something that is close to some of the more governmental structures. It seems to you a strange place, yet again, for someone to have an apartment. But not impossible.
And this is where he lived while he's in London, yes?
Indeed.
I see. Well, thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed. I think we've probably tired you out enough for one day, Mrs. Beaton. You've been very, very helpful. Unless there's anything that you wish to ask, Madame Davina.
No, I believe that is plenty of information. We have some good thread to pull on with the tea house, and as well as finding who he came to the house with.
We are concerned, Mrs. Beaton, that this man, although he seems a very worldly, very charming individual, we believe that he has not altogether honourable intent. You can't always judge a book by its cover, Mrs. Beaton, and this man's cover may be glossy and fine, but inside I feel that there's a very, very different story. This is not a man that I would recommend you trust any further, and if he does try and meet or approach you or anything like that in the future, I would be very grateful if you would let us know about it, because we believe that he is up to no good. This fella, he is up to no good. He does not have your best interests at heart.
She gives you a strange look. I can't believe that Alexander would do anything except honorable things.
Well, this is exactly the Mrs. Beaton. You don't really know anything about this man other than what he's told you.
We believe he may have been the cause of your spell at the party.
Oh, perhaps over-exuberance or too tight of an outfit. It's possible, but it's very hard for me to believe that Alexander would do anything to hurt me.
Well, I've met many a charming rascal in my time, who's a fine, fancy words and compliments and for people, and then while he's smiling in your face and saying how lovely you look, his other hand is reaching round to take the wallet out of your pocket. So I've met more than one or two of these types of fellas in my time. So, like I say, he may seem all peaches and cream and nice as pie, but underneath, he's a no good fella.
Well, if you do find him, you'll let us know.
Oh, I'm sure the word will come to you.
She continues to pet her cat. Erna stands up and gestures towards the doorway. Let's leave her for a moment. Perhaps we can speak with her assistant.
Yes, that would be perfect.
Very well.
Well, bid you a good day, Miss Beaton, and thank you once again for all your help.
She seems to just kind of muse for a bit, as if she's ruminating in memories.
As soon as we get out the room, I'll say to Mr. Beaton, this fella, Fitzgeorge, has cast a spell over your wife and no mistake.
A spell? You can't be serious.
You know what I mean. His flashing his pearly white teeth and his, giving her a smile and flattering her and that sort of thing. He can do no wrong in her eyes. She's not going to listen to reason about what man he really is unless she sees it right up close and personal with her own two eyes.
If you need information as far as their first social gathering here, perhaps names of other people to call on, I'm certain that I can collect them for you.
I think we'll have a wee chat.
I am very interested to find out if his residence here in London is still staffed.
Indeed. Or if it's maybe like his residence in Paris.
What was in the residence in Paris?
You don't want to know, sir.
Now, I have hired this agency to find me answers, and I have not but 15 yards behind me a bewitched wife who will not stop speaking of this man she's seen, who has now been gone for 3 to 4 days. I need answers. What happened?
I'm worried if we tell you the truth, you will not believe us. It is a quite fantastical story.
You say your wife is bewitched, sir?
Does she not seem?
Aye, she does that, sir. But the question is, when you say bewitched, what exactly do you mean by that?
I don't know. He sits back, probably leans back against the wall. He seems exhausted. We've only managed to get her up and eating the past day or so, and every other word is wondering if Alexander has called, whether he's dropped a letter, whether anyone has seen him. It's as if she fails the need to exist without his presence.
Like he's cast a spell on her, perhaps.
Which is why I've used the word bewitched. It's what it seems like. I don't know if it's infatuation. I don't know if she's... You understand. Later in life, some women get hysteric.
Well, I wouldn't know about that, sir. Now, I'm just a country boy. I don't know about this sort of thing. I just, I call a spade, as I say it. And your wife is definitely not herself. Your wife's thoughts and affections are not as they should be. And given the nature of what happened at your social gathering, and also given the nature of what we found in his house in Paris, I am more and more inclined to believe that this fella has some sort of powers of mesmerism. I don't know if you've ever seen these fellas that they get up on the stage and they can pluck numbers out of the air and tell you what you're thinking of and make you think you're somewhere you're not, and make you act the fool up in front of your friends.
I'd always assumed there were people planted in the audience.
Well, I think for many there are, but there are, I believe, people who've got the ability to somehow tap into a person's maybe their desires and their needs. Maybe they can read people a little bit better, and they can suggest things to them and make them behave in certain ways due to the persuasiveness of their voices, if you know what I mean. I understand, in fact, that there's some doctors who employ this particular method when they're treating patients of a particularly hysterical disposition.
Well, I just need answers. I know you are trying very hard to get these questions answered and to find him. And so, perhaps we could continue our conversation after we've had you search the London residence.
Yes, we have some portions of the picture. We would like to present you with the full image when the pieces come together for us. It is hard for us to explain fully what is going on right now, and I think that it would be even more frustrating to just give you the pieces that we have currently.
Yes, well, I trust the both of you are doing your level best.
Oh, nothing less, sir. Nothing less, sir.
have some contact with the British Constabulary. There is a man I know inside Scotland Yard. He's an inspector. He might be reasonable enough to bend an ear towards our cause. If you have any trouble with the residents, that is.
I used to be on the force myself, sir. Might I ask the name of this fellow, or is that...
Inspector Barrington from Scotland Yard.
Barrington? Would I have heard of Inspector Barrington?
Yeah, absolutely. He's a fairly well-known inspector. He's known to be pretty forthright, a very good detective, slow, methodical. Actually, you would know him especially from the recent cases of the Egyptian murders, which were solved. And he finally exonerated a couple people who they had brought in for questioning, and also brought to justice the man who'd killed his partner, who started the investigation.
Hi, I know Barrington. Not personally, but I know him by reputation. He's a good man. He's a good officer.
So we met by way of a British Army colonel, Herring, and the timber business has done fairly well over the past few years, and we've been able to assist the Army with some of their movements ever since the war.
I see. Well, if it's all right with you, maybe have a quick wee word with your man Roger Turnberry?
Yes, of course. He turns down a hallway and walks towards what looks like a bedroom. You hear a sharp knock. Within moments, Turnberry, a man who's probably just shy of 6 foot, well put together, but also seemingly well dressed for a member of staff, answers the door in rather quick succession. Yes, sir. Turnberry, this is one of our investigators, Aidan Moore, and then Madame Davina, associate. They have some questions for you regarding the lady of the house. You are to answer them in privacy, and anything they require, you will provide. Turnberry seems to kind of not wither so much under the man of the house's gaze, but he does seem to give a very polite nod. Of course, sir. Of course. Anything they need. Ernst leaves.
Well, Mr. Turnberry, Roger, was it?
Yes, please call me Roger. It's perfectly reasonable.
I'm Aidan.
Pleasure.
You're Mrs. Beaton's personal assistant, is that correct?
I am. I must admit, it's not been the sunniest of days recently for someone in my position.
How do you mean by that exactly, sir?
I assume you're here about the matter after the party, yes?
I always say, sir, never assume. Makes an ass of you and me.
We are here to inquire about the events leading up to the party.
Of course. Which is understandable.
Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about exactly what functions that you provide for Mrs. Beaton as her personal assistant?
Well, I assist her with her social schedule. I assist her here in the home as is necessary during certain functions. And then I make sure that... He seems to pause for a moment. I make sure that the right people get in and the wrong people stay out.
You see, indeed, you're like a gatekeeper. Would that be right? Sort of thing.
It's perhaps one way to put it. I would say that I am a filter for things that the lady of the house needs.
When you say you are a filter, whose interests do you have in mind first? The lady of the house or the man of the house?
I am under the employ of Ernest.
Understood.
What do you know, if you would mind answering this particular question, about a fella called Alexander Fitzgeorge?
I know from personal experience with the gentleman that he is well-spoken, he is well-traveled, and has many residences throughout Europe. that he has for some time captivated the lady of the house with his adventurous tales and has become the target of earnest ire for several weeks now.
And what do you make of the man? You yourself, and you can speak freely and candidly. Don't you worry about what your employer or his lady wife might expect you to say.
How familiar are you, sir, with tigers?
Tigers? Oh, I've never met a tiger, sir.
Have you seen one in a book?
I've seen them in the picture books.
Mr. Beaton at one point did a small trip to the east, and he saw many fine animals. And he spoke of these leopards or these tigers. And at one point he said that the tiger was the most majestic beast he'd ever seen. Beautiful, powerful, quiet, right up until the point where it ate someone. That is what I think of him.
A predator, then.
I believed him to be a predator when he arrived in full regalia at the first social event here just a month or so ago. What's about 6 weeks? He had the look of it.
And do you believe he was eyeing up Mrs. Beaton as his prey?
I believe he was eyeing up anything he could get his eyes on first. But I think he settled on Mrs. Beaton because she was in a perfect situation for him, quite frankly. She had been a little listless, a little without direction. Mr. Beaton had to, of course, focus much of his time in central London at the offices running the company. And, well, they weren't spending as much time together anymore.
So she was vulnerable, perhaps.
It is one way to put it. But she had always been her own woman. She had always been of her own mind, of her own decisions. And so that first time he came to the house unannounced, I thought the head butler might swallow his tongue. The gall of him to call unannounced on a married woman is something very striking. But she allowed him in.
The filter in this particular instance, perhaps not quite as effective as it might have been.
I went directly to Mr. Beaton. I left the house that day to the offices. I told him exactly what had happened at the front door, and I was shooed out of his office. He didn't think it was a big deal.
Well, yeah.
Either that or his mind was so far in business he didn't hear what I said.
Well, he's certainly not of that opinion now.
And unfortunately, after their first meeting at the house, I was unable to prevent him from re-entering. She'd instructed all staff to allow Alexander in whenever he asked.
Well, you seem like a perceptive man. What would you say, in your opinion, was his motive? What was his agenda?
Well, from the rather docile choice, maybe just a bit of social climbing, yes? Befriend Miss Beaton, get into larger parties, climb the social ladder as high as he could, become a fixture perhaps in the London social circles because of his air of exotic behaviors and travels. This is not uncommon. It happens. To the more salacious, perhaps to truly seduce her and consider larger changes at the Beaton household.
Try that again. Kind of infiltrate his way, worm his way into the household so that he became maybe somebody that they couldn't do without. Yes, I know the kind. Did you, by any chance, do any investigation into the fellow yourself? Find out anything about his background?
I did. I admit with some regret that a few weeks ago, I happened upon the house's journal, and I saw that it was open, and so when I was writing it back onto the nightstand, I did notice where he stayed. And so I had the house investigated by some local boys who were more than happy to keep an eye on it for me. No one came in or out for days. The place on the outside appears as if it is well used, but the boys say it is abandoned, that there is no staff or food there. The lights come on at night as is necessary, and they go off in the morning as necessary.
So it's a front.
It must be. But for what?
I don't suppose by any chance these boys, now what was the name that I've read, that fella Doyle in his books. What was it? The Irregulars, the Baker Street Irregulars. Is that the kind of fellows they were?
Yes, something of that nature, although some of them, it seems, maybe just simple chimney sweeps.
I don't suppose by any chance you had any of these boys follow your man Fitzgeorge when he came out of the house one day and see where he actually went?
No, to be honest, the boys were a little frightened of the house. They said it gave off a strange air.
And the man himself, they frightened of him?
More than one of the lads did mention that the predatory look was not game.
I see. Now, we heard that he came along to a function at the house fairly early on in his relationship with the family.
Mm-hmm.
He came along as the escort of somebody. Do you by any chance recall who that might have been?
Yes, Miss Agnes Heron. She is Colonel Herring's wife. It seems the colonel was doing something at the Imperial College at that point and couldn't make the function. And so, for whatever reason, he accompanied the elderly woman here.
I see. And did they seem to be on good terms, friendly terms, the two of them?
Well, it was difficult to say. Alexander made his introductions. He participated in all of the form and function that we normally would. But I must admit, Mrs. Herring was more of a decoration on his arm than anything else.
And did you get the impression that he knew Colonel Herring, that he had suggested in the Colonel's absence that he might escort his wife to the party?
Yes, he said that they'd met in travels during when the Colonel was still working through the war.
I see.
And so there was some sort of friendship there.
So as you know, there was something of an incident at the function in the house the other day, and you'll have seen yourself that Mrs. Beaton isn't quite herself now, as you've mentioned. We are very firmly of the opinion that this man Fitzgeorge is responsible for this. As it may come as no surprise to you, based on what you said you think of the man, and our particular lines of inquiry are moving towards finding his location and bringing him back home to answer a few questions about his motives and his intentions and exactly what he thinks he's playing at. Not to put too fine a point on it. Do you think it might be possible maybe to speak to one or two of these lads that you have a wee look at the house, maybe hear what they have to say about it?
It's possible. I'm certain that they would talk to you for a few donations, of course.
Oh, it's always a couple of coppers to spare for a wee lad with a sharp eye and a quick mind.
Aidan, why don't you make me a persuade roll?
Absolutely. So I've got persuade of 58. And that is a 58. Exactly. Bang on.
Oh, fantastic. You see Turnberry move a little closer. He leans forward. I don't think you're going to find much there. After the boys came back with nothing, decided to be a little more straightforward. I haven't mentioned this to the man of the house, so if you don't mind.
No, you're safe with us.
last week, found my way in.
Oh no.
The house is this apartment anyway. It's like a relic.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing has been moved there in months. Everything is empty. Larder, closets. There's a functional bed, but hasn't been touched. I think he may have found out that gotten inside.
Oh no.
When he came here for the night of the party, he had a very direct conversation with Miss Beaton. And he wanted her to be rid of me. He said that I was getting in the way, and that I had caused trouble for his travel plans.
Interesting. And you found nothing else in the house at all other than an empty shell?
Oh no, I found something. He reaches back behind him and goes to a dresser. I found something, all right. He pulls it out. It's an envelope. He hands it over to you.
Look over it.
You see the stamp on the front of the envelope, Aidan, and you know exactly what it is. It's a itinerary from Thomas Cook & Sons. He has a journey planned.
What kind of a journey now? Open it up and we'll have a look.
The itinerary in there is pretty well written out. The travel agency is fairly well known all over London and beyond. It appears that his passage on the Orient Express is supposed to take him to Venice.
So it's not actually tickets, it's just an itinerary. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's just the itinerary. But it's telling that there is no ticket in here.
So then, he's on a train to Venice.
You're going to have to go a little farther if you want to find him.
It's looking that way. Madam Davina, you ever been to Italy?
Well, in fact, I do speak a little bit of Italian.
Oh, well, that'll come in handy if you're willing to accompany me. I think we've a train to catch.
I think that's a perfect place to end this episode. And so thank you so much for joining us for the adventures of Aidan and Madame Davina. We'll check back with them in a little bit.